Have you ever experienced something so crippling in your life that has made you feel broken? I have. Are you someone who has a giving heart but is struggling to feel good themselves? Are you consistently putting your needs aside to take care of everyone else? If so, you're not alone. Giving starts with giving to yourself so that you are able to give of yourself to other people. Isn't it time you took back control and discovered what makes you tick? Join me in my journey and find out how you can feel better about yourself, live your best life, and share that with others. Thinking of yourself, it doesn't make you selfish, it makes you brave. I'm Nelia, and this is the Giving Starts With You podcast. Everyone, welcome to another episode of the Giving Starts With You podcast. I'm your host, Nelia Hutt. Thank you for everyone who is joining today, whether they're from their car or their home. So glad to be with you again. And let's just create a world where we feel less lonely. And today, we are going to hear from a very special new friend to me today. His name is Bran Katanec. How are you, Bran?
I'm great, Nelia. Thanks so much for having me, for inviting me, and I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad that you're here too. I love meeting new people and hearing, their take on life and challenges and how they get through things. I think the more we talk about our hardships and how we overcame them, the more the listeners can really feel like a part of something. There are things that happen to us or for us that I think if we don't talk about or share with other people, it doesn't really help anybody. It doesn't help us, it doesn't help them. So thank you for coming on the show.
You're
And you're a
welcome.
fellow Canadian. This is awesome, from Vancouver.
Yes.
Awesome. I'm going to let you guys know a little bit about Bran. I'm so excited to learn a bit more about him today as well. So, Bran, he's a personal empowerment expert. He has been a teacher and a mentor to many. With a meditation based approach and his background in the healing arts, Bran is here to help you get empowered. And I'm happy to say he is a fellow musician and healer. So, we'll talk a little bit about music maybe later on as well. So, Bran facilitates online workshops and works with individuals and groups, teaching them the tools that will help them to be grounded, confident, and to have more clarity and insight when moving forward in life. He helps them move forward, honoring themselves and receiving back what they deserve. He's also a fellow podcaster. He is the host of the podcast BEnergyAware. Bran creates content for all of those who want to live a conscious life in which they can be themselves and thrive. And I've got to tell you, you guys have to check out his audiobook, Get Empowered. His audiobook is here to grow awareness and help people overcome daily challenges. So I can't wait to hear about that too. So, Bran, this sounds amazing. Trusting your intuition. Wow, we got a lot to talk about. So before we can know all of these wonderful things we're going to talk about, it would help us to maybe learn a little bit more about you and about who you are and how you got here. Like, tell us your story.
Wow, it's a long. Thank you for this question. Thank you for asking me, Nelia. It's a long story, but if I would have to make it short and point out a few things that really, I feel would be important to say is that I'm a musician, first of all. First of all, I'm a musician, and I believe that music saved my life. And so, there were lots of hard times for where I come from. It wasn't, really a positive surroundings for me, or, I there was no support. There was war. There were all kinds of things that a young person, it's hard to face them. And so lots of lots of negativity, I would say, around me. And so I was at a young age, I was very aware that I needed something. And so before guitar, I actually I felt like I had a lot of anger inside of me. And so I decided to dedicate myself to something to get that anger out. So the first thing I did was sign up for, I was started training track. I was a runner, I was a sprinter. And I was all in. I was three training sessions a week, competitions and all those things. And I wasn't that great at it, but I was dedicated. And
Mhm.
so by the time I started playing guitar, which was at about the age of 15, in my teenage years, so then everything really changed. And you know, I don't know. I just when I take the guitar, put it in my lap, take it in my hands, something happens. And it's really hard to describe, but anyone who is a musician or who really loves music and any kind of instrument, and anything around music will know what I mean, because music does something to us. It's so healing. So for me, what it gave me was something, I could hang on to, something really positive that I could put my time into, my energy into, and move me forward, and eventually get me out of where I was.
I love that. I love that you're talking about it's not just playing music, it's the experiencing of music. I can see when you were talking about how healing and how meaningful it is for you. It's it's a beautiful thing, although we don't know how someone else feels, I do have some similar feelings about music, and it saved me too. And there's so many things about it. Sometimes it's just the pause, the rests in the music and not necessarily the notes. Sometimes it's how long you keep the notes or how you play the notes that says so much. It can be the lyrics, or you could be listening to something without any lyrics. I don't know. Is it because it let you like just have your emotion come out? Was that, you think, part of it?
What really surprised me, I wasn't expecting to really find myself in guitar and in music. This is what happened. What happened to me? It was, again, something I couldn't describe then, and I cannot even describe it now. But it goes beyond just playing an instrument. And like I said, when I take the guitar into my hands, I'm not thinking I have to spend this much time with the guitar. Time passes by just like this. And so when I started, I played day and night, and no one could take me away from guitar. Like you could not take me away from guitar. And from day one, I was also creative with it. When I was learned my first chord, I wanted to find out what I can do with it. So I moved it up and down the neck to hear how it's gonna sound, and everywhere in the fretboard I could think of to hear if I'm gonna get any different sounds. And so I could sit down and then, lift my head the next moment. It was 5 hours just went by just like that. So to me, it was never a question, people have a hard time with the guitar. I became so peaceful. I became so patient. And I really, because before that, like I said, I was dedicated to training track. I just transferred it over to guitar. And so my progress on guitar was tremendous. I mean, we couldn't even measure it. Within a couple of years, I already, not even within a couple of years, a year and a half later, not even a year and a half later, I was recording in studios, creating music, had bands, performed live, and stuff like that. It's almost unbelievable now when I look back. It was just, yeah, I just couldn't get away from it.
Oh, sounds like there's so much happiness there after and before, like the difference, peace, and just the belonging to something, right?
Mhm.
It's funny because sometimes people say, oh, you're naturally talented at something. But sometimes, even though you're naturally talented, doesn't mean you like what you're naturally talented at. Like, I could be naturally talented at, I don't know, riding a horse, but it doesn't mean I like horses. Sometimes you just have to try something new, open up, and you never know. You might find, whether it's music or something else, some other art, you may just find something that will change your life and transform your life completely. That's why I love talking about stuff like this, because I think sometimes people are afraid to try new things. It can become your best friend, it can become your best kind of therapy, really. So,
This is exactly what I was doing. I was just trying it out, and a miracle happened. And you know, from my own perspective, I wasn't expecting that.
and I'm so happy. I sometimes ask my guests, what is the biggest gift you've ever given to yourself that changed your life or changed the way you felt about yourself? And I think for you, it's music.
Yes, quite correct. Yes, you're right.
Wow. And I love the fact that when you were talking about, you know, experimenting. So you don't like before we hit record, we were talking about you don't have to be good at music or at art. You just have to experience it. You have to allow yourself to completely like break down your barriers and just do it. That's what it's about. That's about feeling,
Yeah.
right? So in what other ways did it change your life from before and after?
I mean, when you're so dedicated to something, when you love it, so I'm gonna say when you love it so much, it just adds this dimension to your life that you couldn't think of before. So my life was from that moment on was like I was really driven and I was creative with it and I was aware that it's a really really precious thing and I wanted to protect it. I wanted to protect my time with the guitar. I wanted to protect the creativity and I wanted it to move me forward. You know, I wanted to really to change my life for the better. So it was a focus thing and it was almost I couldn't resist. I just couldn't just could not do it. That's the point because I loved it so much. Yeah.
Did somebody introduce you to the guitar or why music? Like what was the thing that took you
I,
out of that space?
I really, like I said, I had two encounters with the guitar previously before I got my own guitar at the age of 15.
Hmm.
And that was at my cousin's place and my friend's place. You know, two different people introduced me to guitar. And there was a local band scene and music scene in my hometown that was blossoming at the time. So I could go watch bands. And so all that put together and a couple of, hearing, friends playing music for me that they like. And it didn't take too much. I just became this, it just catches on fire. I just couldn't resist. I just couldn't. It's inspiring. It's reinvigorating. It's energizing. It makes me so happy, and yeah, I just wanted to feel as good as I could with it, and it really helped me.
Yeah, and so a lot of people they listen to music, it uplifts them, it does a lot of things, but not everybody learns to play an instrument, right? So they're like, I got to learn how to create this myself. Absolutely. So the thing is, for me, music helps me celebrate, but it helps me cry. It helps me um, express happiness and joy, but it also comforts me in my darkest moments. It can do so many different things. And I love that, like I said, like some people, they enjoy just playing it and other people experience it. It's the same with lots of different things in life. So, trusting your intuition. What if you're afraid? Like, do you have tips on how to do that? Because, lots of times in my life, I'll think, I know what's right for me in my mind, but I don't always do it because I'm like, well, what if that's not the right thing? What if there's so many things, but you trusted your intuition and it saved you with music too, right? And healing and everything. That's part of it too.
Well, what I would say to that is that it actually set me on a journey, on
Mm,
a one-way trip where I had to use my intuition if I was going to continue doing music and be protective around my creativity with music. And so I was being put in situations and moving through life with, huge obstacles and challenges where I had time to practice basically, and I had to practice. And so there was no avoiding it. So I had time to practice and I did, and I really found out what works, what doesn't work. I found a lot about myself and I learned to, yes, like you said, I learned to trust intuition because again, I'm just putting it in perspective. If I wasn't really caring that much about guitar and music, I wouldn't be on this journey,
Mm,
moving through all these things and having to practice using my intuition. So there was no other, like, it just came with the, with the journey.
mm. Besides music, what other things did you trust, like intuitively wise throughout your life, besides music that maybe we can learn from? Like, did you have any challenges that in trusting your beliefs and in trusting what your intuition was in the moment?
You know, the one thing that I really have to say is I do not make decisions unless I'm peaceful.
Mm,
So as soon as we start second guessing what we're thinking, and then we create a lot of emotion or emotions, and it's not a place where you make decisions from, and you're not able to really connect with your intuition when you're restless.
mm,
And so my default and my go-to is, okay, just go back to there and get centered and be peaceful first. And then I see how I feel about something from that peaceful place. I tune into it. That's why my podcast is called BEnergyAware, because to me, I tune into the energy of things before I make any decisions. And
yeah.
I'm not saying I'm not going to ever make a mistake, but it really does happen very rarely. And because I absolutely trust what I'm getting when I tune in.
Mm. Were you always like that?
Yes, I was.
Really, even as a
Yes,
child?
even as a child, I always had this sense of first of all for what was right and what was wrong,
Mm,
and then I had this peacefulness inside of me, which again, when it got endangered by the circumstances, then I would find dedication through dedication again that peace, and healing through running and then later guitar. So you could say that for a teenager, I was very confident, to say the least. And I didn't see that around me. So a lot of people already in my teenagers were coming to me for advice. I was a natural advisor, you could say, because they could see nothing can move me, first of all, out of my way. Then they saw how I was confidently making decisions in high school. And without guitar, I wouldn't be able to, because it always brought me that to that peaceful place. And today, what I'm realizing is, when I look back, I didn't realize at the time, but actually, when I take the guitar in my hands, I'm actually in a meditative state. So this is where the peace comes from, because I feel so centered and so grounded and connected to everything around me, and everything makes sense
mm.
when I take the guitar. And this is, if I could describe it in any other words, that's what that would be. And so I don't know. Feel free to ask more questions because I could go on and on.
I love that you said it just makes sense. Like, that's exactly how I feel. That's a good way to put it, because I don't know. Music for a lot of people is just music, but for me, it's a feeling. It's not the notes on a page, it's how you play them. It's not, I'm not a very good musician, but I appreciate music a lot, the way that it's played and what it does and how it brings people together or pulls them apart. But it's in the interpretation, you know. And I love that, because you can go to any country and not understand any of the lyrics and still be moved by the music.
Exactly.
I love that. So not everybody grew up feeling peaceful that's listening right now. I am so glad that you have and that you always had it in you. But do you think if somebody's growing up maybe and they have like a lack of control, or maybe even you felt a lack of control of what's going on around you? Like, you came from a small European country and you lived through some war and poverty, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I cannot imagine how that felt. I cannot imagine being in that situation, because I have lived in Canada, which is a very safe place for most of my life. But even in that chaos as a young boy, not everything was in your control. So you may have still felt peaceful, but do you find that art and when you started playing that you could actually have full control of how you were creating? Nobody was there to tell you how your life was going to play out. You know what I mean? Like it was
Well,
freedom, wasn't it?
I I wasn't seeking control. I have to be honest, yeah,
Yes.
I'm just telling you how it was. It was there
Yes.
was this gift, there's this gift, just the fact that I'm aware that I can create makes me so happy. It makes me feel so privileged. And anyone can create. We create our lives every day, by just by making this daily, day-to-day decisions. So when someone comes to me and says that they're not creative, I say, well, you're not telling the truth. But so going back to music and creativity, I just wanted to I just felt great with the guitar in my hands, and I felt like it felt great expressing through music and felt great creating. My thing was creativity. I don't think I would be playing guitar today if I wasn't creative. It's a lot of, and I've saw a lot of people, my generation from my hometown. A lot of them don't play guitar today, and some of them were actually far more talented than I was,
Hmm.
because I mean, I couldn't do things they did, and I couldn't progress that fast in some of the areas of guitar playing. But they were not seeking to be creative. They were not. I don't know. Maybe they were not. Maybe they were afraid to express. Maybe they were too shy. Maybe they were too intimidated, or maybe they were scared of criticism.
That's a big one.
So that can put a lot of people off. And so, but if they were slightly more confident and wanting to express themselves, I bet they would be playing and creating today.
Mm.
Because you don't have to make it a career. To me, it doesn't have to be a career. I just do this. This is how I live. This is what I do.
I love that you said this is how I live because that's exactly what I want for the people that are listening. It doesn't have to be music, but if everybody can find something, I talk about this so much and I'm so passionate about it because giving back and music are the two things that help me wake up every day through my mental health, deal with grief, deal with, anxiety, depression, all of these things. And sometimes we're afraid to trust what we want to try. And we can really be doing ourselves a disservice, because if you don't try it, you don't know how different your life can be. Even if it's cooking, cooking is creative. It doesn't have to be music. Just creativity doesn't mean you have to be good at it. It means you have to let go in the moment and create something. When children are creating art or they're cooking or whatever they're doing, dancing, they don't really care how it looks. But they look so joyful and peaceful. And we don't have to tell them how to do it. They just find their own way, you know? What other types of things do you do, Bran, for self care? What are some of the things that help keep you peaceful?
Lots of time for myself. A
Mm.
lot of time for myself, just by myself, doing absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. I make time to do nothing. So, so
Love it. I love it.
it's gonna shock a lot of people, and hopefully not 20 years from now, but these days it still might. And so when people ask me what is the secret sauce, so to speak, I say, well, lots of time for myself and not doing a lot. Doing my best to not do all the time.
Mm, thank you. That's a good thing to remember. So what do you want people to know about, about finding their passion and why they should? How do you think it can change people's lives?
Well, first of all, I believe everyone is creative, and no one can tell me that they're not, because like I said, we create our lives every day. We have to get up in the morning and we make decisions, one by one. As soon as we get up, we make decisions what we're going to do with our day, and so we're creating every day. So my question is always, what do you want to create? And if you think that you cannot create something that you have on your mind, then look what's holding you back
Mm,
from allowing yourself to create. So this is my starting point, because we're not here to be a bunch of robots that have to do this or that. We're actually here to be actively here and to enjoy our lives and to create each of our own lives so uniquely, because we're so unique, each of us. And so this is what a lot of people still do not understand. And we have seen our parents and grandparents pay for having a different outlook on the life that someone imposed on them from previous generations, I suppose. And so when I hear someone say that this is how things need to be, or you have to do this, or you have to do that, you see, this is where I go back to guitar. This is what I did not allow anyone to do to me, because I
mm,
had the guitar and I was protecting it and my creativity. And when someone said, well, Brian, you have to do that, I said, no, thank you. I know what I need to do
I
at
love
that
it.
young age. So, listening to ourselves and listening to our inner guidance and our intuition and spending a lot of time in that, as peaceful as we can be, so that we can make those better decisions daily for ourselves.
And celebrate our differences. If we don't find what's different about us, I think we're really keeping our gifts to ourselves, and it's not doing anybody any good. If you look at the types of things in the world that move people, that create change, they're mostly about art. I just spoke at a conference. It was how business and art, it's called the Business and Art Infusion. And my talk was about how I believe that art is going to save the world. And I believe that 100%. Even when it comes to the leaders of and all these crazy things that are going on in the world, if they could just find creative ways to talk to each other and feel and communicate. And there's just so many things I think could be better through art, and I don't know. I think I'm hopeful that our generation and my son's generation are going in the right direction. Like you were saying, I think we have more of a choice, or at least we're looking at more options. And don't give up, don't give up on what you believe. I love when you said you're protecting the guitar. Nobody was going to take that away from you. And it didn't just mean a guitar, it meant probably freedom, healing, all of these things, creativity. And you have to protect that. You
Yes,
really
yes.
do.
And yes, I can speak to what you just said now. Yeah. It's I've seen a lot of people spend a lot of time thinking and worrying and comparing themselves to others, and trying to do what other people do, and it never works. It really never ever works, because we're all so unique. And so this is what I have to say is really, I mean, we need to get to know ourselves first of all, and find out what works for us, and keep creating in this unique way. Because yeah, we can look at life as art. Our life is art, and so we get to create it. And not anyone's, if we try to copy someone else, it is not going to work out. It's not going to turn out well. So we can only sabotage ourselves doing that. So we have to find what works for us and then keep creating every day.
I love that. The only thing we can copy is somebody's math homework, because I'm telling you, I've done that. I've cheated on a math test once. That's the only thing, because it's number. Even how you work it out is still creative, but the answer, you can always take the.
Mhm.
Oh, Bran, thank you so much. Where can we find your podcast?
It's the website where you can find everything, including my music links, is BEnergyAware.com. That's just one B and E, so B followed by letter E. Uh, so it's letter B and then EnergyAware.com. And everything is there pretty much. Or you can Google my name, Bran Katanec, Brankatanec, and you'll find it.
That's awesome. And I'm going to put a link to your, I know you've got a self-care download that people can get a PDF. So that's awesome. So thank you. Is there anything we didn't talk about today that you want to mention before we go?
There's so much to say. I mean, I would like to finish up with, you know,
Of course.
intuition and trusting our intuition. If we allow ourselves enough time, you know, I pretty much didn't have a choice. If I was gonna fight for guitar and creativity, I was on this journey where things were put in front of me, I had to practice. But if we allow ourselves, if we are not on any kind of, if we don't think we're on any kind of journey, and we are always, we can allow ourselves to practice using our intuition on small things. Let me just give you one example. You want to go to the store, you get in your car, and you might have a GPS, and you might want to follow GPS. I say no. I would say better trust your intuition where you want to turn, because GPS is sometimes do not predict car accidents and things like that. So when I go anywhere, especially outside, especially before I make any important decisions, I tune into, okay, does it feel left or right? Does it feel straight ahead? You know, like I just really make an effort to tune in before I make these decisions, and almost any daily decisions. And they can be little ones. And so this is where we cannot mess up badly if we try to use them on, you know, these little things, day-to-day things. So this is what I encourage people, like to encourage people to do.
Yeah, and I think the more you do it, the more easier it becomes to trust it because it doesn't lead you astray. It doesn't lead you down the wrong path, you know. It might be hard at first when people are perhaps not naturally in tune to doing that, but once they allow that and they give themselves permission to try it, I think it will keep you safe. It will keep you from danger. Even in dangerous situations, trust your intuition, your instinct.
Exactly. So when you get rewarded back, and it shows that it's a good thing, you know, when it's not a good thing, you know, if you practiced on a small thing that's not that significant, uh, then you know, okay, I was not quite right about that. So maybe next time I should trust what I was getting at first, because always when we tune into anything, what we get first is that, and people tend to not trust that. It's almost unbelievable. You know, it's hard to believe that this simple, that it comes so easily to us, that it could be the answer, and it normally is. So I encourage people, learn to trust that what you get first is normally the answer, and try practicing on small things. If bigger things are, you know, bring you fear, too much fear, yeah. But you're gonna know when you're making the right decisions, and you know you're gonna, with time, trust your intuition more and more as you gain these good experiences, as a result. Yeah.
No, I love that so much. And it's almost like we talk ourselves out of it, right? So sometimes, when you hear a psychiatrist and they're like, okay, I'm going to show you something, tell me the first thing you think of. There's a reason for that, because we stop, we analyze, we do the pros and cons, we do, all these advantages and disadvantages. We ask our friends, we call our parents, like
Yeah,
before we make a decision, right? Like,
exactly. Don't call anyone. Do not get a second opinion. You know. I'm going to give you just one example, and it's going to
yes,
be one of the
absolutely.
best ones that I could give. Let's say I'm looking for a job, and a job offer comes through a friend, or who knows. Well, you get a phone call, and you get offered this, and it's like, wow, it sounds great on paper, and it sounds like there are these benefits, and the pay is this, and you get to do this and that. And then you get, you know, what can happen is we start thinking, yeah, this is great. And then we invoke those feelings of what it might bring, and it's not based in reality. In reality, what we just need to do is, okay, I've heard this. Let me just check in with myself, take some time, and then I tune in. What I do is I just tune in. And although it might, to my brain, it seems like it's great and super great, but when I tune into it, does it feel good?
Mm.
If it doesn't, then watch, not to make a big. I mean, what we normally do with that, if we if we don't follow what we feel about it and think too much, then we're gonna just end up suffering more and in more pain. And I would really love for people to avoid that.
Yeah, I love what you're saying because I agree. Not even if I didn't agree, but I love it because so many times we second guess ourselves, and I don't know, it makes life harder. I do believe that you should think about things, and I do believe that sometimes you need to analyze things. But for me, I always lead with my heart first because I know I can trust it. Maybe I didn't always feel that way. It's okay to still analyze, but don't let it change what you initially feel. Like when you were talking about the job, if I'm looking through something, I'm like, oh yeah, this is perfect. This ad is perfect. And then I start to feel something in my arms, start like, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable the more and more I'm reading it, then just move on. Like, don't even think too much about it,
Exactly.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, normally anxiety is what comes in, or pressure in the chest area, and this is our body telling us, "Oh no, it's a no. Actually, you're not feeling good about this," And then we can even second guess that. We can think, "Oh no, this is just me overthinking, and this is why this is happening." No, no, just trust yourself. Your body is going to tell you. The more time you spend with yourself, the more time you practice, the more you're going to find out about. I'm sure everyone can know and everyone can learn to use their intuition all the time and avoid more suffering. Have a much better life. Yeah.
Yeah, who wants to live for other people? We shouldn't live the way other people want us to live. We become more confident, and more secure, just more powerful because we know what we want and what we don't want. And sometimes it takes years to figure that out because
Yeah.
people don't listen to themselves.
And people also are afraid to lose friends. And
Yes.
then what I say to that is, if you lose them, if they're gone after you've become your own person and got empowered and you're making the right kinds of decisions for yourself, then those were not really your real friends.
Or just
Or
not
maybe,
aligned with
or
you.
maybe, yeah,
Yeah.
and or maybe, they're gonna come back later when they find out something for themselves. But you being yourself creates an example for them, a reference point that they might go back to later on. You never know when you're gonna connect with them again. But again, we need to trust ourselves that we're doing the right thing.
I think that's why it's so important to like you said, I love that you said you have a one-way path, you know, and it's not a two-way path because there's always a chance to back out, right? It's just, it can even talk about relationships. Sometimes I see people growing apart in relationships, even married couples, because they don't grow together. So one person is learning about themselves and growing in themselves, and the other person is staying static. And so that tends to break up marriages and friendships and a lot of things as well. But it's always important to be true to who you are because there's only one of you. You're only here for a short amount of time, you know. Um, yeah, try to find people that are aligned, that will give you the space, that love you enough to give you that time.
Yeah, it's someone who really appreciates you and honors you and really, really, really cares. And to give you that space and that time to do what you need to do for yourself without judgment.
So if you're listening, share this with your friends. Such an important message here from Bran today. And yeah, I think this is great. I loved our conversation. Thank you so much.
We didn't even get to the healing or teaching on any of those
We're
things, but
not
I think,
done, so we
but
can
but
talk some more.
but I think we got, when it comes to intuition, I think we covered enough. I believe I feel I've said what I needed to say around intuition for sure, and around music as well. Thank you so much, Nelia, because when you're such a feeler as yourself, you really connect with everything. You really
Mm,
can tell, you're really on, zoomed in on what I'm saying and every word of it, and then you kind of almost interpret it for your listeners and say add a few more things, which makes the conversation even better. So I like that. I really love that. So and I
I'm
think
glad.
we could help them some more at some other time. Yeah.
Thank you, Bran. I am so, so happy that you came here today. You shared part of your personal story with us. You shared how you feel and how you just heal through music. And I really appreciate that because I think it's so important that we all find our own music, our own thing that helps us through all the tough times. So I'm sure everybody who's listening today has taken a lot from this conversation. I know I have. So I really appreciate you coming, and I'd love to invite you to come back. And maybe we can continue this conversation and talk a bit about healing. How does that sound?
Sounds great, Nelia. Thank you so much. I would love to come back and talk some more, of course.
That's great. Thank you. And keep playing that guitar. I want to hear some of the music. Maybe next time you can play something for us.
Maybe, yes. Okay.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe or leave a review. See you next week on the Giving Starts With You podcast.